I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Can't take no more than hair. Since the flag came down, I'll be here to the last lap around. Worked all week, it's time to play. Gonna get a little bit sideways. Hey, since the flag came down, be here to the last lap around. Worked all week, it's time to play. Gonna get a little bit sideways.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to another edition of Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and we've got a new guest co-host in the house tonight. I'm excited about this, Tom, as I know you are. Steve Ovens, our normal New York dirt track correspondent, joining us here this evening. Going to be in the house for a little while. Recently engaged. Congratulations, Steve. We're glad to have you on the show tonight. A little bit of a celebratory Monday night, if you will.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're going to celebrate an engagement, no better place to do it than here on Motorsports Madness.
We are happy to have you along for the ride. Tom, I tell you what, it's been an exciting weekend from around the world of motorsports. I'm glad to get the conversation started because there's no wilder place to talk about than Darlington Raceway, and boy, did we see some action this weekend.
We surely did. Before we talk about that, I want to add my personal congratulations to Steve and his bride-to-be, and I could probably think of several better places that she would rather you be celebrating this, Steve, but we're happy that she let us borrow you for a little while tonight to talk some racing.
Well, they're, out doing the shopping thing, so I got a few minutes to myself
here. You had to give her the credit card, didn't you? That's what it was. You had to give her the credit card to get. Well, that's okay. It's a fair. We're fine with that. Let's talk Darlington here, guys. It was it was surely a crazy race, really both days, but Saturday especially.
That's absolutely right. Saturday especially, 500 miles, the Southern 500 at Darlington, one of the most grueling races on the NASCAR circuit, Tom. We talk about it every year as one of the most prestigious events on the calendar. It's one that everybody wants to win, and when you win it, you have done something. And boy, the driver that won it on Saturday night, he did something all right. He started on the pole, led the most laps, took 4 tires on a late race caution, and powered by the Pied Piper on a late race restart to grab the victory. And, oh, by the way, basically locked himself into the chase. All hail Kevin Harvick.
Yes, all hail Freaky Fast. Second win of the year, and yeah, I mean, I would feel pretty comfortable at this point, Jacob, that he's locked into the chase. But I got to tell you, Kevin won the war, but boy, Dale Jr. was all set to win the battle, and I feel really, really bad for Jr. because that car was going to win the race, and that was by far his best performance at Darlington that I've ever seen, and I think it was his best ever finish.
It absolutely was his best ever finish. Had never finished on the podium at Darlington. Finishes second in this event on Saturday night. His teammate Jimmy Johnson, who was the defending winner of the Southern 500, comes home in third. The two Hendrick boys taking a gamble on 2 tires late, but it's just like we saw at Texas last week, Stephen. You can't bet against 4 tires. It just, the way some of these tracks are right now, 2 tires is not paying off, and that gamble, while it is a good one, unless we see about 8 or 10 guys take it, I don't know that it's going to work.
Yeah, and I think those guys were expecting maybe a few more guys to take 2 tires Saturday night. Certainly there was 4 guys that took them, And had those cautions not come out to set up the additional green-white checkers, I think the 2-tire gamble would have paid off.
Tom, I want to turn to you right here. We're now 8 races into the schedule. We're at the Easter break, if you will. Jimmie Johnson has yet to win a race. He's yet to really be close to win a race, except for Saturday night at Darlington. Is this the part where we worry about Jimmie Johnson's chances for another championship, or is this just Jimmy and Chad settling in, telling everybody, give us a little bit of time, and don't you worry about us, we'll be there? What's up with the 48?
Well, I surely would not be concerned about Jimmy's chances of making the chase. Win and you're in. He's going to win. It may be next week, it may be 3 weeks from now. He's going to win. Let's just not even go there. So I don't think there's any worries. And as long as you win and you're in, then all you have to do is be on your best behavior and best performance when the last 10 races roll around. This is no different than any other year. We all know what that team does in the last 10. So no, I think that, they've had some bad luck and some things that shouldn't have happened, and it isn't as if they've been uncompetitive this entire time. But again, the changes that were made to the cars have allowed a lot of other drivers to step up, and of course, then you've got Kevin Harvick going to the 4 car. We've seen that pay off with 2 wins already. Joey Logano has been super strong this year. You've got drivers that have not necessarily been as strong, now fighting for wins on almost a regular basis. So you start looking at some of the other drivers, even, Matt Kenseth off, Kyle Busch has been off a bit. I mean, the Roush cars have been inconsistent at best. So, some of these guys are just figuring this all out a little bit quicker than others. And I really honestly feel like, they have to get this together sooner or later. The 48 team is going to be just fine. And I have the feeling that once he does win, he's probably going to win. It'll be, 2 out of 4 races or 3 out of 5 races or something. He'll go on a little bit of a streak and pull off a couple of wins, put himself in the chase. So I wouldn't worry at all about the 48 team. I think they're going to be just fine.
All right, let's go back to Steve. And, this is another topic, and thank you, Tom, for bringing this up, because Tom just brought up the fact of new faces in new places being really, really good. Steve, I don't know, where have we seen this story on 2013 Matt Kenseth, anybody?
Yeah, absolutely. And the 4 car has been really strong, even in the tracks that they've had their mechanical woes. It'll be interesting to see if they can keep this going and get some more wins, because certainly you have to look at the bonus points you're racking up with each win, on top of the fact that you're keeping other drivers from punching their ticket into the chase. And I know that him and Rodney Childers have got to be looking at that as well.
Let's talk about tickets being punched to the chase, Tom. Kevin Harvick, with his win Saturday night, gets his second win. He is now guaranteed to be among the top 15 winners over the course of the first 26 races, which means all that's left for Kevin to do is stay in the top 30 in points and qualify for every event between now and Richmond, or attempt to qualify, I should say, between now and Richmond, and he's in the chase. Period. End of discussion.
I don't think we'll see more than 15 different winners. Let's put it that way. I think everybody that's won so far is going to be in. And, again, that's been fun, because you've seen some of these guys doing some crazy things with pit stop strategy and so forth. And anybody that can say that NASCAR is not putting on good, exciting racing, I mean, I guess we can still argue that the races are too long. And you know what? We can have that opinion if we want, and I do, and I don't mind sharing it. I've shared it a number of times, and I think one of the ways to cut costs of the sport is shorten the races. But aside from the fact that there still is, a section in the middle where it really doesn't matter where you're racing too much, if you're not leading, it really doesn't matter. But aside from that fact, the racing itself has been so much better this year. And again, the 2-tire, 4-tire, no tire, crazy pit stop, short pitting, doing different things like that. I mean, we're just seeing some fantastic racing. And the last 50 to 100 laps of these races is just flat out flying and slicing and dicing for position because these guys want to win. And that's where we need to keep going. I'd like to see that attitude, that approach even intensify more, and NASCAR to find more ways to emphasize winning and running up front, because it's really made a big difference in the quality of the racing this year, I think. And I think that's being reflected week in and week out. Harvick's the first repeat winner, and, he got lucky because, it came down to an extra restart. Three late race restarts it took for him to be able to get Junior. So, otherwise Junior would have been the first repeat winner. So, it's been a pretty great start to the season. And Steven, I'd like to know what you think about this, because you're a short track fan at heart, like I am, who appreciates NASCAR like I do, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, as you were saying that, the first thought that came to my mind was, look at how exciting these first 8 have been of drivers trying to get wins. I'm looking forward to getting to through these next 18 races, because I really feel like when we get to race 18, we're really going to start seeing some guys with some off-kilter strategies and guys just trying to throw whatever as far as their setup or strategy goes to try and pull down a win. I really feel like we have yet to see the best that these guys have.
I think that's absolutely right, and I think I agree with both of you. It's only going to get better from here. I'm looking forward to getting this Easter break over with, although I will be thankful for a weekend off this weekend, and, getting things back at it in 2 weeks at Richmond International Raceway, another short track. We know that's going to be exciting. You've got the Denny Hamlin Short Track Showdown going on that weekend. You've got the K&N Pro Series East going to come and race at Richmond that weekend. You've got Nationwide Racing. You've got Sprint Cup racing. It's going to be wild and crazy and beating and banging and battering. And there's something about these short track races, especially under the lights, that feeling of unpredictability is absolutely through the roof, and I think it's going to be really, really exciting to see how it goes through here once we get to that point in just a couple of weeks at the end of the month. But for now, we are going to take our first caution flag here tonight on The Madness. When we come back, we will discuss the NASCAR Nationwide Series and some of the local short track racing that took place over the weekend from the NASCAR ranks. Right after this, you are listening to Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
For every turn, a twist. For every start, an untimely finish. For every win, someone who loses it. For every number, a nation. For every celebration, a brawl. For every split second, years of work. For every heaven, a hell. For every good old boy, a good old girl. For every curse, a prayer. For every ounce of order, a jug of chaos. For every twist, there's a turn.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker,
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio.
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed 77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and special guest co-host tonight, Steve Ovens, here around the round table talking everything from NASCAR to open wheel to dirt track racing, pavement racing, short tracks, super speedways, you name it. We've got it in some form or fashion right here on the Madness. And let's go into first the NASCAR Nationwide Series, Tom, because this was another very exciting race on Friday night. And I want to say I was among the skeptics that thought going into this weekend, okay, Chase Elliott won one. It won't happen again this quickly. And I will be the first to admit that not only was I really glad we had him on Monday night because we can we can let that be the poster child of we helped, but Chase Elliott does it again, and I mean power move 6th to 1st in 2 laps to win at Darlington Friday night.
Gosh, you know, we talk about this all the time, Jacob. When you win one, it's just a funny thing. Momentum is a very funny thing. Once you win your first race at a given level, you never, ever again race saying to yourself, I know I can. You start driving like you did. And I don't exactly know how to explain that, but it's just there's something about the mental lift that you get from that. Whether it's you just are not afraid to push the car that much harder or drive a little more on the edge or whatever the case. But boy, Chase Elliott he's proving to be a real threat for the championship. And I was the first to say that I thought it would take him half the season to really get to the point where it wasn't so much I didn't think he would win one necessarily in the first half, but surely wouldn't have expected him to run up front like he has. But I guess that goes to show how much I know about Chase Elliott, because he's just surprised a lot of people, I think. And honestly, Junior Motorsports as a whole, Steve, has really come out of the box awfully strong in the Nationwide Series this year. Every one of them are running well.
Yeah, they are. They're going to have to get that fire whistle siren out in Dawsonville, Georgia, fired up again. They'll be ringing that again this week. And, those guys have really come out strong. I really feel like Dale and Kelly have really stepped that program up in a big way, both on the marketing side and obviously, as we're seeing now, on the competition side. Chase, Regan, and any time the 5 or the 88 car has been out there, those guys have come off the truck strong, and they're showing it on the racetrack. And boy, Chase Elliott's stock is got to be going up at an astronomical rate at this point.
Oh, absolutely. I would definitely agree with that. You know, we knew he was going to be good. We just weren't sure how quickly he was going to get good. And obviously, he's showing us exactly how quickly he's getting good. And it's amazing to think that he's doing it at some of these tracks that he's never seen before. Tom, I can't even begin to imagine how good he's going to be when we start getting to a few of these tracks that he has seen before when he ran those NASCAR Camping World Truck Series races in 2013.
Well, that's what I was saying a minute ago, is I really expected it to take him about half the season to really get through all the tracks. And then I thought that in the second half, he would have really picked it up. But of course, that's not what happened. And to win at a place like Darlington, I don't know, Jacob. I mean, that's just, I don't know how many drivers have won. I think this had to have been his first time at Darlington, right, Jacob?
It absolutely was. He won in his debut start at Darlington Raceway because the trucks raced there once upon a time. They don't anymore. I wish they'd bring them back there. I've talked about it a couple times. The trucks at Darlington, when they ran there, boy, oh boy, was that a good show. But no, this was Chase's first ever time around the Lady in Black, and boy, he tamed the track too tough to tame.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's as awesome as it gets there. I mean, it's hard to win at Darlington at all. Even if you're a veteran and you've raced there a lot of times, it's hard to get a win there because the track is a very tough track to tame. And gosh, for him to come out of the box and do that, and especially in the fashion that he did it, was pretty amazing. So, yeah, I mean, he's certainly going to be tough to contend with the rest of the season. There's no question that I think there is a new driver to beat right now in the Nationwide Series, and that's Chase Elliott. I think the championship now, you've got to start thinking that you're going to have to factor him into that pretty seriously. Although, again, Regan Smith's running very well, and Regan is a very consistent racer. Regan is the type of racer, he's going to get you some wins, but he's going to be very, very consistent. And if they can just keep doing what they're doing, he's going to be there. And I still don't think we've heard the last of those folks named Kyle yet either.
Oh, not at all. And they won't be contenders for the Drivers' Championship, obviously, but they'll be contenders for wins. Sure. They'll be contenders for wins, like you just alluded to, Tom. And Kyle, Busch and Larson, boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yeah, you can never forget about them because when they get beaten, they only come back stronger. Want to turn to some of the short track action from over the weekend real quick, Tom, because there was definitely some exciting news Saturday afternoon from the Langley Speedway, the Courtyard by Marriott Pepsi 150. We've been talking and fussing on our Thursday Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports show about George Brunhosel III and when's he going to win and when's he going to win. Well, we don't have to ask that anymore. He won.
Yeah, I think we were all just waiting for that. I mean, it wasn't a question of if. It was a question of when. He's been up front every race this year, and he's been in contention. But, last week at South Boston, he had as fast a car as Andy Seiss had, but Andy started up front and Georgie started in the back. And, track position at South Boston is pretty important, and you really got to work hard to get through a field there. And Georgie did that, but he didn't really have a lot of time at the end to challenge Andy. So, again, this time at Langley, Georgie got it done, and certainly another example of, okay, now we got one win. It wouldn't surprise me at all, just like with Andy, it wouldn't surprise me to see Georgie get another one pretty quick. That's why when, we were talking on Thursday, I don't see Andy running away and hiding in this series at all. There are plenty of drivers who can win races in the Whelen Southern Modified Tour, and I certainly think that George Brunhosel III is going to be very, very tough to deal with from here on out. And there's still a lot of young guys, as we spoke about as well, with the opportunities to step up and be counted as we get into the second half of the year. So that's a great series. And just, Langley's one of those tracks where it's kind of a wild card, and Georgie certainly did a good job in taking home the checkered flag this past weekend.
Yeah, he did. It was the 11th track on the tour that he's won at. He had actually never won at Langley before Saturday, so a good win for him. And Tom, while we're talking about short tracks, I understand that you have got a fresh off the wire update to our 77 roundtable from the Steel Palace up there in New York, Oswego Speedway. What's up?
Yeah, the Oswego Speedway's official social media, led by their infamous PR director, Dan Kapuzinski, or Danny K, as he is known to most of us, just delivered to us the news that Brian Sobis, who has for the last few years and off and on super modified and small block super modified competitor at the Speedway, 2 years ago ran the full season. Last year went back and just ran some small block races. Well, Brian Sobis is back in super modified racing. Unfortunately, it won't be till Classic this year, but he has purchased the number 50 car that Dave Gruhl has raced over the past few years for Bob Hofer and his team as a teammate to Pat Lavery in the 22 car. So Brian now has one of the top cars at the track in his possession and plans to bring it out. They're going to be kind of going through it and taking their time and still working on some funding and so forth, but they're going to be going through it and getting it ready for the International Classic this coming Labor Day weekend. And then I would imagine that the goal would be from there to try to make a full-time run in 2015. So Brian is very popular with the fans, and I spent some time working with Brian over the years and have known him since go-karts. In fact, I raced karts for Brian a few times, and he's been my crew chief at times, and just a super young man and one of the best talents at the Speedway who is not in a winning capable car at this moment, and of course now they've got one. So congratulations to Brian Sobis and his team on their acquisition. I would imagine that he will look to put the number 79 on it if it's available. That's been traditionally the number that he's always liked. As he was not a Siddeley fan for a long time, and Otto no longer uses it. So I would say that Brian will be a threat in the Classic this year. He's the type of driver that runs really well in longer races. So there you have it. That's the latest from the Oswego Speedway. Brian Sobis, if not until later in the year, but he is back in the super modified game at the Big O, and I'm glad to see it.
I am too. I got the chance to meet Brian a couple years ago on one of the King of Wings weekends where they have the Old Timers Reunion and the ISMA show on that Saturday evening during the summer. Great guy. Just, really enjoyable, really personable, and that's fun to see. It'll be a great addition to the Classic field for 2014. So glad to hear that from the Sobis camp. We're going to take a break here on the Madness. When we come back, we're going to move over to Open Wheel Central. Joel Sebastianelli going to be joining us, and we'll break down everything from Long Beach, preview the F1 race this weekend in China. Not everything is completely shuttered for the Easter weekend. We'll be back right after this. You are listening to Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading material supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a Motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
The odds of a young girl being discovered by an industry insider while singing to herself pumping gas? 1 in 300 million. The odds of the daughter of a clergyman from Severn, Maryland spending 11 weeks at number 1 on the U.S. singles charts? 1 in 19 million. The odds of going on to win 6 Grammy Awards? 1 in 1.4 million. The odds of selling over 40 million records? 1 in 800,000. The odds of this musician and performer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. I'm Toni Braxton, and I encourage you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference. Autism Speaks. It's time to listen. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio.
Powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
All right, welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com. Jacob Seelman and Tom Baker around the round table tonight, and we move into Open Wheel Central as we do every Monday night. And we have our resident wine and cheeser and open wheel expert, Joel Sebastianelli, back at the table. And Joel, boy, if we were looking for action this weekend in Long Beach, we certainly got it. Maybe not so much in the first 45 laps of the race, but the drama certainly ensued, and I'm sure, as always, you have an opinion about it as well as you do about the surprise winner that we had over the weekend.
Well, people have been saying that it's a surprise winner. I didn't think it was really all that big a surprise. He wasn't my pick to win the race, but if you recall, I said I wouldn't be surprised to see Mike Conway fighting up there. He certainly fought well at St. Petersburg and was in the top 5, actually, before a miscommunication. Well, a pair of them, one with his team and one with IndyCar, resulted in him moving all the way to the back of the field in a stop-and-go penalty. So it's a very unorthodox partnership with Ed Carpenter Racing, seeing as he's only running the road courses, but I think it's a very fruitful partnership, and we're already seeing that. He got his first career win in IndyCar at Long Beach in 2011 when he was driving with Andretti Autosport. So I'm certainly not surprised at all by Mike Conway, even though he's still in second in points, definitely trailing Will Power, finished first in St. Pete, second in Long Beach. Will Power definitely seems to be the team to beat in the 12, but very wild race, especially as we got down to the very end at Long Beach. Really, it seems as though over the last couple of years, Long Beach has become a track that's really tearing up race cars. But maybe not necessarily the track itself tearing up the cars, but the drivers on it doing so, really fostering a lot of impatient aggression and resulting in some incidents that just really haven't needed to happen over the course of the last 2 years.
That's absolutely right, and one of those incidents that really probably didn't need to happen happened on Sunday afternoon at just after lap 55. Joel, cold tires for Joseph Newgarden, Ryan Hunter-Reay coming through with a head of steam. They get together, everybody sees the results, and all of a sudden 6 of the top 7 are gone, and thus opening the door for Mike Conway's trip to victory lane. What was your view of the accident? And you used the word unnecessary, and I can't help but think that that's exactly how to describe it.
There was no reason that Ryan Hunter-Reay couldn't have waited until another part of the track, even one corner down, before making that move. Nobody in the history of ever has completed a pass in that corner. You could actually hear Paul Tracy say, "Oh, it's not going to work." The second Hunter-Reay went down the inside. Newgarden on cold tires, of course, you needed to make that move soon, but there was no move. You couldn't have waited until the next passing zone 2 corners later to do that. It wasn't all that far away, and for Ryan Hunter-Reay to do that, it was just a very, to quote James Hinchcliffe, it was just a rookie move. It was a highly unnecessary and, quite frankly, stupid move by Hunter-Reay, which are 2 words I don't think I've ever used to describe Ryan Hunter-Reay before. He's typically a little bit reserved on and off the track, and for him to be the driver who did that, it's just very surprising. Of course, everybody makes mistakes, and I certainly wouldn't attack him as a former champion, but those are just ways you're not really used to seeing Ryan Hunter-Reay drive. It really came out of nowhere, and I feel really, really bad for all the guys who got caught up in that. First of all, Joseph Newgarden, he's never won a race. You got to feel gutted for the team owner, Sarah Fisher, as well. For Jack Hawksworth, for the 2nd week in a row, getting caught up in a mistake by a veteran driver that just wasn't his fault at all. Wrong place at the wrong time, and his race ends early for the 2nd week in a row. So many great cars taken out in that. Of course, what that does do, though, and we've seen it now 2 years in a row at Long Beach, is you get some surprise drivers up at the front when you look at the final order. Of course, Simon Pagenaud isn't much of a surprise, but he's in the top 5. Juan Pablo Montoya, 4th. Nicola Leshin, 6th. Definitely great for him to get up there in the top 10 for Sebastian Saavedra as well. Carlos Huertas rounding out the top 10. So names you're not used to seeing anywhere near the top of the leaderboard. Certainly getting up once half of the field gets taken out at Long Beach these last 2 years.
What of the gamble on fuel by Scott Dixon? We know Mike Hull and that Target Chip Ganassi team, they gambled, they rolled the dice to try and win the race. It doesn't work. Dixon misses out on, we say, probably a fair bit of points this weekend. What do you make of the gamble by the 9 team?
Well, it's tough to second guess it now. Certainly we know that it didn't really work. Of course, would he have been up near the front had they taken a different strategy? It's very debatable. You win some, you lose some. Normally, Tiger Chip Ganassi Racing is right up at the top when it comes to making these gambles, and they normally pay off for the team. Rather unfortunate that it costed him a very high finish. Ended up finishing that race in the 9 machine in 12th. Which knocks them down to 6 points, even though it's early in the season. They could have been right up there. But I think as far as where they started, the way they managed the race, again, hindsight is 20/20. If they thought that it was going to work, it had their driver out in front, and if the race is 2 laps shorter, we're not talking about it as being a big mistake. So I'm not going to get too involved in criticizing them. Easy to say it now, but just a tough break for the Ganassi team to finish outside the top 10 after leading so many laps at the tail end of that race.
And looking ahead now in IndyCar a little bit, over the weekend we also saw 2 announcements to further build the field for the 2014 Indianapolis 500. First, Buddy Lazier making a return in that family-owned number 91 effort, as well as announced this weekend a 3rd car for KV Racing Technology, Townsend Bell, going to return to the Indianapolis 500 in May. Either of these announcements intrigue you at all? And what of it now that we're finally starting to build this field, hopefully to a full 33 cars come the first day of practice?
Well, Buddy Lazier at 46 years of age, I don't think is really considered to be a real threat to win the race. He did win in 1996, of course, the 2000 IndyCar Series champion. It at least makes for a good story in that 91, though. He's going to be sponsored by the University of Iowa's Stephen Wynn Institute for Vision Research. The research center specializes in curing retinal diseases, which is exactly what a 12-year-old daughter has. She has no vision in her right eye, inherited disease, and kind of a sad story there, but neat to see the way it's all kind of come full circle and the way he's bringing awareness to this through something that he loves to do and that he's been known for, a great driver in the history of IndyCar. So good to see him out there, and of course that's one closer to building the field of 33, as you said. As for Townsend Bell, this one does intrigue me. Going to be racing for KV Racing, who will be building a 3rd car at the Indy 500. Townsend Bell has always been really good here. He's completed 1,308 of a possible 1,400 laps in his career at Indianapolis. He always seems to be running at the finish. Finished 4th with KV Racing in 2009. So it's a track that he's always very good at. It would be nice to hear him in the booth because I think he's such a great asset to NBC Sports Network and whatever television coverage he does. But for him to be out on the track, it's somebody that certainly would be a dark horse to win. You wouldn't necessarily be betting money on it. But he's a driver who, come the very end of the race, is definitely going to be up there. A good, solid snatch by KV Racing. We'll see how the rest of it unfolds, but with those 2 in, we're closer to building the field of 33, and hopefully more than 33 come May.
Let's look at this weekend now. While the IndyCar Series is off for Easter break, we do have a Formula One race this weekend in Shanghai, China, the Chinese Grand Prix this weekend, and we're looking at Mercedes potentially going 4 in a row to start the season. Joel, let's look at the Chinese Grand Prix because there's a little bit of history behind this race and certainly a lot of intrigue to see if anybody can knock off the Silver Arrows come Sunday afternoon.
Well, they'll need a little bit of help to knock off the Silver Arrows, mainly in terms of unreliability. Something's got to go on, I think, up front for Nico and Lewis to not be leading the fields by 30 seconds at the end. It's a track that they're both very strong on. I love Shanghai International Circuit. A lot of Formula One fans don't, but as a driver, it's very demanding. You've got the first 2 corners at 270 degrees. A right-handed combination. You need a lot of speed, and especially once you get out of turn 13 and run on a stretch of the track that another DRS zone and actually longer than the front stretch is. You got a little bit of everything here. Plenty of great corners. I think it's a great track for Formula One. Rosberg and Hamilton both very good. Nico Rosberg got his first Formula One victory with Mercedes in 2012, dominating the race. Lewis Hamilton, of course, a winner in 2011 and 2008, both times with McLaren. So with these drivers running typically very strong in China, I would expect the same thing again. If for no other reason that even if this wasn't one of their strong points, it's like racing a sports car up against a Prius in a way. You know you're going to be out in front, even if the other cars are going to last and they're proving to be reliable. Unless something goes wrong with the Silver Hours out front, they're going to cruise home by 30 seconds again. A little bit of an uproar at Ferrari now. Things changing. As of this afternoon, actually, Stefano Domenicali is out with the team as team principal, and he's going to be replaced by Marco Mariachi. I don't think it's really going to hurt the team too much in terms of performance on track, but this is a track that Ferrari is typically very well on as well. You have Kimi Räikkönen, who's won the race with Ferrari in 2007. Alonso's won here a couple of times, as early as 2005 and as recent as last season. So if anyone is going to knock off Mercedes, you would think that just based on history it would be Ferrari. But Mercedes is a team to beat for the season and for another Grand Prix.
And while we're talking about F1, a little bit more information coming out today from Gene Haas and his team over at Haas Automation on the official confirmation of his entry into Formula One. Haas saying it's going to take place either in 2015 or 2016, depending on how quickly they can find an engine supplier and get the necessary pieces in place. He has said that Haas Automation going to sponsor the team to start off, but with some of these pieces starting to come together now, Joel, this, as some people labeled it early on, being a joke, is really anything but now.
I never thought that it would be a joke. I'm really happy to see America possibly getting back involved with Formula One. Now, one of the quotes from his media conference earlier in the week was that, quote, "This is not going to be a European just throw money at things and go racing approach. This is going to be an American, well-run, efficient organization," Haas said. And if they're going to do that, I think that you just wouldn't be doing it right and giving it any justice if you went out in 2015. You can't rush things. I wouldn't expect to see them in for at least another 2 years. But if they do things right, you get the right drivers, it'll be great to see America back involved, especially a name like Gene Haas, who has been confident about this really from the get-go and brings a dosage of typical America, I suppose you could say, in motorsports. He kind of has this approach to him that, just like you said, this isn't really the European approach that we're used to seeing. It's a little bit different, but it's great, and I think it would go a very long way to getting casual American motorsport fans back interested in Formula One, especially if they're interested in NASCAR and just don't really follow Formula One that much. It gives you an extra reason. Kurt Busch is very confident that this will get done and assured everyone that Haas is taking it seriously. I certainly think it is, and if you're going to throw that much money at something, I mean, you've got to be taking it seriously. This isn't a joke at this point. They've been approved by Formula One, and I expect we'll see them in competition around 2016.
And talking about Gene Haas was about getting a young American behind the wheel. I'll throw a name out of the hat because it's about the only one that I can think of right now that's worth anything in the hat. Connor Daly.
Connor Daly is certainly one name that comes up, although I wouldn't count out Alexander Rossi if they're looking for an American driver. The thing is, neither of those guys really bring a lot of sponsorship money, though, which, I mean, Gene Haas can say he wants to do this the American way all he wants, but it doesn't matter what way you do it if you don't have money. There's a reason that paid drivers exist in this sport, especially on smaller teams. I mean, with the state of F1 now, even Lotus is needing to rely on essentially a driver who's a paid driver and shouldn't be there, and Pastor Maldonado. He wrecks everything in his path, but they've got more than enough money to make up from it with Venezuelan oil money. So somebody like Rossi, Connor Daly, they're going to need a little bit of backing, but don't count out Alexander Rossi either. He's been a test driver for Caterham, 22 years old, very good young talent, actually won in Abu Dhabi in 2013 in the GP2 series. So he's on his way up, finished 9th in points, and I would think that Alexander Rossi would be a great fit as he enters his third year as a test driver in Formula One. He's got a little bit of experience, and I think more experience than Connor Daly does, actually. We give Connor Daly a lot of credit, but because he has things here in America, I think he's more at the front of our brains, whereas Alexander Rossi has much of his pedigree overseas, but he's an American name and somebody who would be just as deserving, if not more deserving at this point, I think, of having a Formula One drive compared to his American counterparts. But there's plenty of time to go in between now and then.
And Joel, I know as we get set for this weekend, obviously want to wish you a safe holiday weekend. Know that you'll be watching the F1 Grand Prix this weekend from China, and look forward to having you back on the show a week from tonight to break it all down. Certainly going to be exciting this weekend. The holidays may be here in the States, but abroad there's still racing action going on.
Wherever you are and however you may be watching it, enjoy your race weekend.
And with that, race fans, we will get set to take another caution flag here on the Madness, but stay tuned. There is a lot more yet to come. Coming up, we will talk with NASCAR Camping World Truck Series rookie contender and driver out of Turner Scott Motorsports, Ben Kennedy, about his 2014 start, everything he's doing with NASCAR Next and the short track around the East Coast, and much, much more. So stay tuned. That conversation's coming up next after these words. You are listening to Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Stay with us.
Packers,
Vikings,
Red State,
Blue State.
We come from different places.
Uptown,
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
half empty,
Half full.
But no matter how different we are, we're all connected, and we can all make a difference. That's why United Way brings people, expertise, and resources together to improve the education, income, and health of our communities, the building blocks for a better life. When we live united, our efforts, magnified by others, add up to real change. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly, so do our communities. But real change won't happen without you.
Live united.
So let's look beyond our differences.
Live united.
One by one, let's make a difference. Let's reach out a hand to one and influence the condition of all.
Live united.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
Powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and Stephen Ovens around the round table tonight as we talk all things motorsports. And Tom, our next segment, I was really excited to do this segment when I got the chance to, and excited to share it with the fans now, but got the chance to sit down with a young rising star from the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series who has a lot of heritage in the sport, has fought hard to get his place in the sport, has wanted to prove that he's not here because of anybody else but him and the fact that he can drive the wheels off a race car, or in this case, race truck for 2014. Ben Kennedy, Turner Scott Motorsports has put a lot of faith in him, and especially after the run that he had at Martinsville, he is not disappointed.
No, not at all. He really has done a tremendous job with that, and I think that he's one of these drivers that has just consistently shown an ability to adapt and adapt pretty quickly. And I think that as this season goes on, you're going to be hearing a lot more from him, and I would not be at all surprised to see him in victory lane before this year's out.
Oh, I wouldn't either. It had the potential to happen at Daytona. He led 52 of 100 laps and, just got shuffled back there in the draft late in the going, was working really, really well with his teammate Ron Hornaday, and those two, I think, would have been threats for the wins had they not gotten shuffled way to the high side late in the going. But Ben ran third at Martinsville, has definitely shown flashes of brilliance. He won twice in the K&M Pro Series East last year, and, amidst everything he's doing on the truck side, he's owning a K&M Pro Series East team for Kenzie Ruston this season. This kid is doing it all.
Yeah, and he's doing it all well. He's just a young man with a lot of promise on more than one front. I mean, as you said, he's a team owner as in addition to his driving, and I think he's proven that he has what it takes to compete at a high level and to learn to compete at a high level, and I'm looking forward to hearing from him.
Let's not wait any further then. Let's head over to the Race Chaser phone lines and check in now with Turner Scott Motorsports Camping World Truck Series driver Ben Kennedy. Jacob Seelman for Speed77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com sitting down for a special featured interview with 2014 NASCAR Camping World Truck Series Rookie of the Year contender for Turner Scott Motorsports, Ben Kennedy. Ben, first off, thank you for taking some time to talk with us here this afternoon. Really a rise for you through the ranks over the last couple years, but not one that was totally unexpected. You've grown up in the world of NASCAR and in this sport, being the great-grandson of Bill France Sr., and your family bloodline has been so closely tied to NASCAR. What's it been like for you over the last couple of years, coming up through the ranks and really making your own mark in the sport that your family has been such a big part of?
Yeah, it's been really cool, and then I guess being a race car driver, it's been a unique experience for me from that perspective, but, just sort of coming up through the ranks and everything, I've always sort of been around Daytona. I was born and raised here, and I've pretty much lived here my whole life, excluding a couple of years of college and interning and all that stuff, but Daytona's pretty much home to me, and, I've been around the racetrack, and being able to actually race on the racetrack this February in Daytona was a really cool experience, but my family's always been there to support me. They come to my races whenever they can and are definitely supportive of it. And it's a really cool sort of environment to be around. Once you get into the racing industry and you start making friends and everything, it's an awesome atmosphere that they got going on. And it's definitely something that gets in your bloodline and they'll stay with you for the rest of your life, I think.
Let's talk about that race at Daytona, because a little bit of weather interference that ultimately played in your favor allowed you to start on the pole for that event and really take charge of it in the early going. Didn't ultimately get the finish that a lot of people felt like you probably deserved for as fast a truck as you had, but what was that Daytona event like for you behind the wheel and being able to work with some of your teammates there for the majority of that race, especially Ron Hornaday in the closing laps?
Having Ron Hornaday as a teammate was extremely beneficial, but there's a lot of different changes that sort of went throughout the day. Like you talked about the rain delay for qualifying, and then it eventually got rained out, going to combined fastest practice speeds, which thankfully put us on the pole, and we were able to play a little bit of strategy into it, and work with Ron Hornaday and get up to the lead and lead a bunch of laps. I think he led about 52 laps of the 100-lap event. So it was really exciting to be out front and lead Daytona. And, it's kind of wild out there. It's almost quiet when you're out front. And then once you get back in the pack, it starts getting a little more exciting. And, you're bumping and banging with other guys and everything. But it was really cool to race around Daytona, especially for me, just always being around that place and meaning so much to me. And actually going around that racetrack, not only, single-handedly, at the test session in January, but once you get another 36 trucks out there, tons of fans in the stands and everything, it makes for a lot of anticipation and a lot of excitement to see.
Obviously, we don't really have a true baseline to look at for this 2014 season yet. Only run 2 races at Daytona and then a couple weeks ago at Martinsville, where you finished 3rd, notched your best career Truck Series finish to date. You're fairly up there in the points right now, at least within striking distance, but there's still a long way to go. So what's it going to take for you once the series gets started back in a couple weeks at Kansas to maintain the start to the season that you guys have had and be able to contend for the Truck Series championship?
Yeah, there's so many different variables that really go into the sport, and being successful not only takes a good driver, but also takes a good team, an awesome truck behind you, and a good setup on the day of, and sort of, being able to adapt to track conditions changing and everything. So I think it's a mixture of everything, really. As much as we can do on the front end, make sure we do our homework before, make sure that we have a good setup coming to the track, a good baseline right when we get off the hauler. And, especially for me, going to a lot of these tracks that I haven't been to, for example, Kansas and Charlotte, our next 2 races, I don't have any experience actually running around there. So making sure that we come, with a solid baseline, that I'll have 20 or 30 minutes within the first practice to really start to learn the track and understand the track. And then after that, we can start focusing on setup and making sure that we're sort of good all around, and dot our I's and cross our T's and everything. So I think everything that you can do on the front end will be very valuable sort of going down the road and throughout the season.
Working with Turner Scott Motorsports on the truck side, I know several of your teammates you've actually had the opportunity to race against before truly joining the TSM organization this year. Some of the guys like Dylan Kwasniewski on the nationwide side, some of the guys on the K&N Pro Series side where you raced the last couple of years. What has the team environment been like for you, and what's it been like being able to work with some of the other drivers that you've had the opportunity to at Turner Scott?
It's been a really cool experience, and the Turner Scott Motorsports is an awesome sort of organization, on the truck side, nationwide, and K&N side for that matter. I think it's cool to see a bunch of different experience levels. I mean, you have everyone from the veterans, the non-Hordays, to the up-and-coming stars like, Ben Rhodes and Kaz Gralla and all them. So it's really cool to sort of work with all those guys. And it's almost kind of like one big family over there. Everyone hangs out with each other, everyone picks on each other, and everyone can sort of learn from each other and develop together, which I think is really cool. So I'm excited for it. Steve Turner and Harry Scott have been awesome to work with throughout this whole process, and I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of success down the road. And I'm really excited to see what we can do this year.
And talking about the K&N side of things, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing in the K&N series this year, because you moved up to the truck series, but you're still maintaining your own operation, Ben Kennedy Racing, in the K&N Pro Series East with Kenzie Ruston for 2014. What's your outlook been like for the team so far in 2014, and what do you feel like Kenzie's capable of as the season continues onward for the K&N series?
I'm really excited for them, and I'm actually probably going to head over to the race shop here pretty soon over in Daytona. So I'm excited for them, but everything's been going pretty well for them. They've had a couple bumps in the road so far in the season. They're only 4 races into it, so there's plenty of racing to go for those guys. And I'm excited for Kenzie. I think she's a great racer on the track. She's aggressive. She gets after it. She knows what to tell the guys. She understands the car, which is really good. And she's also, a good representation of our sport off the track as well, when it comes to the media. And I know she was another member of our NASCAR Next group this past year. So it's been cool to work with her, and I'm excited to work with her the rest of the year and, see what they can do. I think realistically they could get a couple wins this year and ultimately run for the title.
Let's talk about the NASCAR Next program really quick, because I know that's been a big part of what you've been able to do with the sport over the last year or so. What have you been able to take from the NASCAR Next initiative and working with some of the other drivers who, like you, are trying to make it to the top levels of NASCAR? What's that whole experience been like for you over the last 12 months?
It's been a blast, really. As much as everyone is competitors, all the drivers. As much as we're really competitive on the track, when it comes to the off-track activities and doing, these different NASCAR Next events, it's been a lot of fun. We've all become pretty good friends throughout the process, doing these different things, traveling to different places, and I think it's a really cool program that they have. It really sort of gets you involved and sort of helps you gain more experience on the whole media side and everything, and get more exposure for you ultimately, which is huge for us, up and coming drivers, trying to find new partners, going down the road, and, having that exposure and a following behind you, which the NASCAR Next program helps a whole lot, will definitely benefit you from down the road. And, I'm sure any of these guys, if not all of us, could end up in, at least the 3 national series going forward. So it's been a lot of fun.
And Ben, I know you're gearing up to head to Kansas here in a couple weeks, and you're excited to get the truck series back on track, but I know everything you've done over the last couple of seasons couldn't be possible without a lot of people and partners behind you that help make it happen. So I'm going to let you give some shout-outs right here. Talk a little bit about who makes it happen for Ben Kennedy.
It's a ton of people. Turner Scott Motorsports has been, huge helping us and everything, and we've had several partners throughout the past couple of years, but we have Florida Lottery on board in Daytona, and Alpine Stars, and just all those guys have been a huge help to us, and as well as the Delaware Office of Highway Safety. We're going to have them on for hopefully Delaware race this year, and we'll make some announcements for some feature stickers on the car, I guess you could say, here pretty soon.
And Ben, I know we're looking forward to seeing you back on track here in just a couple of weeks' time at Kansas. Again, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit about what's been going on with you and your story here over the last couple of months, and look forward to seeing it all continue to play out in the 2014 season, and wish you the best of luck as you head to Kansas for the Truck Series race in a couple of weeks.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me on today. Appreciate it.
And Tom, before we head to commercial, I just want to offer something up real quick. We talked about how you and I both think that Ben Kennedy will win a race this season. I would not at all be surprised to see it happen at Martinsville when the Camping World Truck Series returns there in the fall. The last two races he's run there, the only two races he's run there, he's finished 4th and 3rd. Maybe we can skip 2nd and go right to the win. I mean, he's certainly been good enough to be well deserving of a grandfather clock.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, Ben is just a very well-composed, well-skinned young man. And, you just really get the feeling, we keep saying this every week on our shows, but it just bears repeating, the crop of young talent that is in the K&N East and the Camping World Truck Series right now, and even the Nationwide Series, is just extraordinary. I mean, everybody wants to, okay, rich kids, grandpas, daddies, whatever. But you know what? These folks can drive race cars, and Ben's a good example of that. He's earned what he's gotten, and, I look for big things from him.
I do too, and I think it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out. With that, we will take another caution flag here on the Madness, and want to remind you that if you like what you hear tonight, well, guess what? We're here every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, talking everything from NASCAR to IndyCar, pavement, dirt tracks, short tracks, super speedways, sports cars, sprint cars, you name it, in some form or fashion. I'm sure you'll hear about it here on the Madness. We are on the air every Monday night right here at this link, or by going to Speed77 Radio or Race Chaser Online on Facebook, or checking out racechaseronline.com. When we come back, we're going to get down and dirty with Steve, bringing him back and talking sprint cars, dirt track, short track racing. We got it all coming up next. It gets wild and crazy on the Madness right after this. You are listening to Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading material supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a Motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Guess what? We're back. Welcome back to the Madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and Steve Ovens in the house tonight. And as we draw closer to the end of our time together this evening, we can't go anywhere without getting down and dirty. Tom, Steven, it's dirt track conversation time. And Steven, boy, oh boy, let me tell you, the World of Outlaws has been downright incredible the last couple weeks. And Friday night at King Speedway, we saw something that's never happened happened before for this team in World of Outlaws history, and boy, it just continues to prove that the series is getting better and better each week. 3 wins in a row by Casey Kane Racing by 3 different drivers.
Yeah, Cody Dara finally was able to break through and get a win in his KKR ride, and I mean, the parity, and we've talked about it week after week here with the World of Outlaws STP sprint cars. 14 different race nights, 10 different winners, just phenomenal. The only better parity than that so far has been of the sister series, the World of Outlaw late models. They have 8 different winners for 8 races, but with these sprint car guys, I mean, doing that spring break tour, as we called it, and Cody Dara getting his first win, things were looking pretty good for the World of Outlaws.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, Steve, this was a win that Cody Dara needed desperately. I mean, there was talk from Casey Kane that they might have to pull that car off the road because the performance was just not there. And boy, Cody Dara needed to deliver, Tom, and he absolutely delivered. You know, you don't just pass Joey Saldana and drive away to victory for nothing. Dara did an outstanding job Friday night and deserved the win.
Well, he did, and Cody has been a prospect that, really not a prospect. It's not even fair to call him a prospect anymore. He's been one of the top drivers for a long time, and there was a stretch where I think when Cody was real young, everybody thought that he would just fly like an eagle, and he had a bad car accident that sidelined him for a while, and once he came back from that, he started to just show what he was capable of. And, you know, a win like what he had over the weekend is typical of what we know in this part of the country to be Cody's MO. I mean, he's not afraid to go for it, and he's certainly not intimidated by anybody. And it was great to see him get that victory. And here again, I don't think it's the last we're going to hear from him either, and this may be the start of something really special for Cody this season.
I hope it is, and I hope he does well this season. I've waited for Cody Dara for a couple years with Casey Kane Racing to really show up, impress us, make something happen, and I was glad to see him get that victory. It's one that he's been waiting on a long time, and just really looking for great things out of him and that entire Casey Kane Racing organization going forward. But going on to the next night, to the conclusion of the spring break tour, Stephen, at Paris Auto Speedway, and we saw 2 things, one of which was disappointing, the other of which was fantastic. The first one was a little bit of a disappointment on car count, with King of the West sprints opening on the same night as the Outlaws race at Paris. Really kind of drove some of the local California cars that would normally have run with the Outlaws away. But, you know, despite the fact that there were only 16, 17 cars, the racing was still fast and furious. And after almost a year and a half of waiting, Joey Saldana finally gets a win in the Modern Motorsports 71M car.
Yeah, over the weekend, my Turn 5 co-host, Clint Miller, had sent me a couple of messages about Saturday night's event, and one of them was the car count, and I thought for sure the number he had sent me was a typo, but obviously with that schedule conflict, the guys that are following the whole Outlaw tour, just those guys were there. But from what we've been able to see, Joey Saldana finally, and when we've brought his name up several times over the last couple weeks, getting top 5 after top 5 after top 5. At some point, if you keep yourself up there in the top 5 contending for wins, you're going to break through eventually. And he was able to do that and really, keep himself in the title hunt. He's really not that far back. Donnie Schatz has quietly moved his way up to take over the points lead, but great win for Joey Saldana. And this is another guy where we've said, okay, he's broke through, got his win. there could definitely be more for Joey coming up.
Oh, I think there definitely could and will be more. Joey's one of the all-time winningest drivers on the Outlaw Tour, up in the top 10, I know for sure. But Saldana, he's waited a while for this one, and I think it's a scenario kind of like, Tom, you and I talk about all the time. You go from, I think I can, to, I know I did, now let's do it again.
Yeah, and of course, all of these series in which we reference that are so awfully competitive. It is so hard to get wins in these big series, but here again, there's something about that little extra swagger that you have. It's not even necessarily swagger. I think it's just confidence. And everything in life, I think, is cyclical. It goes in cycles. And boy, when you're hot, you're hot. And then, of course, sometimes when you're not, you're not. And Jimmy Johnson is one of those who's not right now. But, here again, some of these other drivers we've talked about tonight really are on the upside of the cycle right now. And it's great to see that. It's all see some new names in victory lane. And that's what makes racing so special, because you really never know when you go to the racetrack, even if a guy is having a dominant season. There's always that chance that somebody's going to break out and do something special that day. And, that's just what makes this sport so cool.
That's exactly right. And that's a perfect segue into the next set of sprint car racing that I want to talk about, that you and I actually were in attendance for this weekend, Tom. The USCS and URC combination sprint car events at Carolina Speedway on Friday night and at Lancaster Super Speedway on Saturday night. The northern and southern based tours combining for shows 1 and 2 of a 4-race combination series in 2014. The URC boys will be back in October for a pair of shows again at Carolina and at Cherokee Speedway in Gaffney. But, Tom, we saw a couple of guys win this weekend who not only keep the streak alive for USCS, having never lost a challenge event against the URC, but they were two guys that, again, needed a win bad. One hadn't won in a long time, and one hadn't won at all. Johnny Bridges on Friday night at Carolina Speedway holds off his cousin Lance Moss for victory, his first since 2012. That race was memorable, maybe more so for the fact that we saw Eric Riggins go out of the ballpark in turn 1 on the second lap. But Bridges scoring a memorable win on Friday night, and Tom, a long overdue one, with last year being the first season he's ever gone winless.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It was a long overdue win, and boy, those two guys really put on a show. I mean, I felt so bad for Eric Riggins on Friday night because, it really, what happened to him was not of his own doing, and it was a wild, scary ride. I mean, at the end of it all, he landed in a spot where he was able to, get up and walk out. But, anytime you go over the wall at Carolina Speedway, that's scary. I watched that happen once last year, and it's a long drop. But fortunately, where Eric went off up and over, he kind of just landed on a piece of flatland there and was able to fix the car in time for Saturday. So certainly felt bad for him, but so amazingly cool to watch two of the local drivers, Johnny Bridges and Lance Moss, just do so well this weekend and put on such a good show that night. Always neat when the locals beat the invaders, and it goes to show that there are some strong sprint car racers in the Carolina area, even though really don't have a local or you might say close proximity 360 series right now. We've got 305s, but not 360s. So those guys, have to basically either travel or they have to be limited to, a handful of shows a year. So that's pretty, that was pretty cool for both drivers this past weekend to get the wins that they did.
And can I brag up Lance Moss a minute? I've got to, because Lance, boy, oh boy, he comes out of pavement late model racing, won the track championship at Concord Motorsports Park all the way back in 1996. But this is a guy who picked up sprint car racing as a hobby back 7 or 8 years ago. Pete Walton called him up and said, "I'm short on cars. You want to come race?" And Lance found a sprint car, came and raced, and really did well at the very beginning there. Fell off for a while, came back in 2009, finished 5th in national points with the USCS, but, through it all, had never been able to make it all work and make it go to victory lane. And son of a gun, if he didn't pull it off Saturday night at Lancaster Superspeedway, the big, fast half-mile racetrack in South Carolina, beats the Invaders, beats the USCS contenders. Moss, who normally runs the southern region for USCS, in that number 23 car, holds off, poetically almost, his cousin, Johnny Bridges, for the win. Moss, after Eric Riggins had the field covered, Tom, led by nearly a half track with about 7 laps to go, and the car jumped out of gear. Eric puttered to a stop in turn number 1. They were able to get the car refired, and he rebounds to finish second. But for Lance Moss, the emotion in victory lane was incredible. He gets a huge challenge trophy, just going to celebrate this one a long time, and there were tears flowing in victory lane, because this is a win that I think Lance himself had started to doubt if he was ever going to get it.
I'm sure that's the truth. And of course, again, as we just said, that's what's beautiful about the sport. You just never know. And it wasn't as if, he didn't luck into it. You can't say he lucked into it. Okay, Eric Riggins had a big lead, had a mechanical problem, and Lance ended up winning the race. Well, Lance led most of Friday night at Carolina. So, you really can't say, obviously luck's a part of the sport, but Lance earned it, and it's great to see him win. And I think we actually have some audio.
Yeah, we do. Lance led 30 of 50 total laps this weekend, and as the announcer for the USCS, I was actually the first one to get a chance to catch up with him in victory lane following the event. And boy, if you weren't at Lancaster on Saturday night, this was an interview for the ages. Let's hear from Lance Moss.
Lance Moss, this one has been a long time coming, hasn't it? For the first time in USCS competition, you are here in victory lane. In sprint car competition, period, he tells me. How about this? Lance, how did you end up here right now?
Well, I'd like to thank God first, because if it wasn't for him, we couldn't. And I hate it for Eric. I don't know what happened to him, but, I hate it for him, because he was faster than me. But, hey, I'll take it. It's been a long time coming. I'd like to thank my father. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. My whole family, everybody puts this deal together. Hey, I couldn't ask for any better.
You're a hometown boy from Cherryville, North Carolina, and you said it. You were the track champion at Concord in 1996. Did this sprint car thing on a whim. You've done it for a few years, finished 5th in points in 2009, but right now you are on top of the world. What does this win mean to you?
Oh, it means everything. It just feels like I got that monkey off my back, and now we can just set our sights forward and try to get another one.
And he's going to be looking for 2, but he needs to celebrate this one first. Race fans, how about another round of applause for your winner tonight, Lance Moss!
I'll say it again, because I said it after the event on Saturday night. It doesn't get, Tom, any better than that.
No, it does not get any better than that. And again, great priority there. Thanked God. Credited Eric Riggins. Just a humble racer, and one of those guys that you just love to see him get a victory like that. That'll do more for him than we probably even can put into words here on this show. Sharp looking race car too. Love that number 23, and it's just great to see the new faces when they win. That's really what makes it. And this was, I think, a very successful stop for the USCS URC group, their combined effort, and just a great couple of nights of racing. We did have some attrition on Friday night at Carolina. A couple of cars getting upside down or getting badly damaged, but seemed like just about everybody was back the next night for the Lancaster show, and even the 600 series, boy, another Charlotte boy getting the win, and it was just a weekend for the locals against the Invaders, I guess.
Yeah, it was. And just to update that, Rick Goss swept the USCS 600 mini sprint class wins at Carolina Speedway on Friday night, and then they went to East Lincoln Speedway on Saturday. Goss winning both of those shows, going career wins number 4 and 5 on the USCS 600 tour. So congratulations to him as well, Rick out of Charlotte, North Carolina. But while we're getting down and dirty, before we head to our final break of the evening, Tom, do also want to update another driver who is making his mark, and really we didn't expect him to win a lot at first, and boy, he's proved us wrong. Swept the USAC Honda National Midget Openers over the weekend, the Kokomo Grand Prix. Rico Abreu going to victory lane twice in a row. That young man is going to go places, and I feel like if he can find a ride to run full-time, especially with the World of Outlaws, boy, he's going to be a threat.
There is absolutely no doubt of that. I mean, that is just... Again, that's another young driver who is just proving himself every time he gets in that race car. And, you know, there's another series that we like to give a lot of time to on this show, but probably doesn't get talked about as much as it should in the grand scheme of things. But those USAC series are tough series, and Rico Abreu is definitely a prospect that you'd have to say is going to be one of the next big things if he chooses to keep climbing the ladder. And if he doesn't, if he's kind of the Chris Bell mindset of wanting to just hang around USAC in dirt cars, well, I gotta tell you, he's going to be one to contend with for a long, long time.
That's absolutely right. And with that, congratulations to all the dirt track winners from over the weekend, the ones we've mentioned and the ones that may have won across the country. It's certainly never easy, but it's always one of the most fun sights. If you've never been to a dirt race, never been dirt racing, you need to, because there is nothing better. It's just such a different thrill than pavement racing, which has its own thrill, yes, but there's nothing like spending a Saturday night at a local dirt track. It's always fun. I had fun this weekend with the USCS. Always enjoy it, and looking forward to the next time. The USCS actually going to hit pavement in a couple weeks at Anderson, South Carolina, and Southern National Motorsports Park in Kenley. And Tom, the ASCS Carolina Sprint Series has a couple dates booked in Georgia that same weekend on the dirt. So sprint car racing alive and well here in the Southeast, and looking forward to that coming back in a couple weeks. But for now, we're going to take a 15-second pause for station identification, and we'll be right back to conclude the madness after this.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to the madness here on Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Just about ready to roll this to conclusion, Tom. Before we go off air tonight, want to go through a little bit of a lightning round here, catch up on a few of the other things that we've not gotten to yet tonight. First, from the ARCA CRA Super Series combined with the ARCA Midwest Tour, the Border Wars 7-Up 150 took place this weekend at Toledo Speedway, and veteran Brian Campbell holds off rookie Anderson Bowen to get the victory in that one. Toledo, always a fun racetrack, and again, you see the story. A veteran may have gotten the win, but these young guys, they're just everywhere.
Yeah, really common thread that we're probably pretty close to overdoing on tonight's show, but again, you're right. Just so many young drivers making their marks so far this year, up and down the various levels and across the board on various surfaces. And Toledo's a track that is not an easy track to drive.
That's absolutely right. So to win there means you've done something. Congratulations to Brian Campbell. Take a look at the sports car side of things for a moment. The Tudor United Sports Car Championship going to action on the streets of Long Beach in the headline and prototype class. We talked about them a month ago at Sebring. Well, we're going to talk about them again. The kings of American sports car racing are back on their throne. Scott Pruitt, Memo Rojas take Chip Ganassi Racing to victory lane at Long Beach. They were there in 06 and went to victory lane. Well, guess what? They're back.
Yeah, well, and you knew it wasn't going to be long before they got back to victory lane. The cream always rises to the top eventually, and I still say that is the team to beat in that series. And until one or more of them retire, and by the way, just we should slip this in. Speaking of that team, one of the top Indy Lights drivers, Sage Karam, who won the championship in that series last year, spent a little time driving for Chip and for that team, and he announced over the weekend that he is feeling pretty good that Chip Ganassi Racing may be able to put together a fifth entry for him for the Indy 500. And I didn't get a chance to talk about this myself earlier, but I want to tell you, I think that Sage is a driver who I'm not going to jump and say, he can go win this year's Indy 500 if he gets the chance to race in it, but I certainly think he can make some serious waves. I think Sage is a very talented kid, and I think his stints in the sports car showed that, and I do think that eventually you're going to see him as a full-time member of Chip's IndyCar team. That's going to be fun. But, definitely a big win over the weekend for the Target sports car team.
Absolutely right. And looking a little bit deeper into this, wanted to touch on it in the dirt segment, but we got there was so much dirt racing going on, we couldn't cram it all into 15 minutes. But Tom, Ryan Villapoto back on top in AMA Supercross in front of the hometown crowd. He wins his fifth race of the season in Seattle, pushes the championship lead to 48 points, doesn't officially lock it up, but he can do it basically by starting the main event next weekend in New Jersey. All James Stewart and the rest of the company, Ryan Dungey and everybody else can do at this point is watch Ryan Villapoto go on and claim the spoils of victory, because unless something happens between now and feature time on Saturday, Villapoto gets hurt, something like that would forcibly remove him from the main event. There's no stopping him. He's going to win the championship, and hats off to him, because it's been a great ride this year for him.
Well, it really has. And, unless someone locks him in a closet somewhere, we know that this is basically a foregone conclusion. Again, a very competitive series, but Villapoto is just really, at this point, on top of his game. You gotta look at this, and, you see Villapoto and you see Stewart and Dungey on the podium with him. They're three of the best drivers that have ever done that. The best riders in the history of that series. And what a great time it is to be a fan of that type of racing, because it's rare that it kind of reminds me of the 70s in IndyCar, when you had, and even into the early 80s, when you had so many just legends racing at the same time. Here's a series with three of the best that I think have ever been involved, in Villapoto about to get the championship. So congratulations to him.
Absolutely right. Moving to the straight liners now for a minute, because they were on our home turf at ZMAX Dragway down there by Charlotte Motor Speedway, and a little bit of history being made this weekend. Robert Height becomes the first funny car driver to win 2 NHRA 4-wide Nationals trophies. Fittingly holds off his boss, John Force, for the win in the top fuel class, the other nitro class, it was Antron Brown taking the victory in the 4 wides. In Pro Stock Bikes, it was Andrew Hines. Been a while for him. He only scored 1 win last year, had a down season, but that Screaming Eagle Vance and Hines sponsored bike is back on top, so congratulations to Andrew Hines. And here was the history-making note. Jimmy Alund subbing for Greg Anderson in the KB Racing Summit Racing Equipment sponsored machine becomes the first European and Swedish native to ever win an NHRA Pro National event. He wins the Pro Stock class in just his first career 4-wide final, and what a run he has given that KB Racing machine. Hats off to him, because it's not often we talk about a sub coming in and winning a race, especially not one, Tom, as prestigious as the 4-wide Nationals. Super sub, I think so.
Oh, I would say for sure. And boy, what gorgeous weather we had here in Charlotte all weekend long for the 4-wide, and just great to see so many people in town for that. It's a huge event. I really wish I had been able to attend. Unfortunately, we had other commitments, but it was just a terrific weekend for those guys here. Always, to me, the preeminent drag race of the year. Love the 4-wide, and definitely look forward to being able to hopefully make it back next year for that. But certainly congratulations to all of the winners from the weekend, and look forward to having the NHRA back in town later on.
Absolutely right. And just to update from the Must See Racing Sprint Series over the weekend, they started their season on the pavement in Pensacola, Florida at 5 Bikes and Mobile International Speedway. Aaron Pierce and Brian Gerster picking up the 2 wins there. So congratulations to all our weekend winners, and that's going to do it for tonight's edition of the Madness. It's been a wild ride. I've enjoyed it, and let me tell you what, when we resume next Monday, I'm sure there's going to be some stuff to talk about. Yeah, pretty much everybody's taking a break, but not everything's taking a break. We'll have F1 action to talk about, and I'm sure there will be news stories and everything that we can always find enough stuff to talk about. It's mad in our heads. That's why we call it the Madness. But for now, for Tom Baker and Stephen Ovens, a special thanks to him for popping in studio tonight. I'm Jacob Seelman for Speed77 Radio and Race Chaser Online, reminding you race fans out there to check out racechaseronline.com for all the latest news, notes, and interviews from around the world of motorsports, from NASCAR, IndyCar, sprint cars, Formula One, pavement, dirt, you name it, we've got it. That's racechaseronline.com for all your news, views, and interviews from around the world of racing. And until Thursday for the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'm Jacob Seelman for Speed77 Radio, reminding you to keep it off the wall until we meet again. We'll see you at the racetrack, folks. So long, and have a safe racing evening.